As a next level leader, I believe you can become better than you ever thought you could be. The key is to figure out what your blind spots are and get them out of your way. Let's get started. This is The Blind Spot. Hello, friend. Thanks for hitting play and listening to my podcast, The Blind Spot with Deb Seymour. I really appreciate that you are supporting me and listening. It just is amazing. And I hope that when you listen, you are going to learn something new about yourself from today's episode. If it sticks with you, reach out to me. I would love to hear what came up, what you learned about yourself, and share this episode with somebody. Maybe there's a coworker or a family member that you think would benefit. That would be awesome. Of course, subscribe, whatever platform you listen on, that would be great. And leave me a review. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. So let me jump into it. Today's conversation is with Greg Cavoli. Greg and I used to work together in Connecticut. We both went to UConn. We both started with Enterprise around the same time. So I knew him back then. I knew him back when he was a management trainee, just like myself. It's great to see the same person today, almost 30 years to the day, where he is still who he is, a nice guy who genuinely cares about people. And you're going to hear a lot around what he does to build his team and to have them perform at a high level. He'll talk a little bit about some connection points between his role outside of Enterprise with the United Way, as well as his involvement with his kids and being that basketball leader that he is. He's got a big thing going on where he purchased a team, and I have some notes around that in the podcast notes. So be sure to click on his website and take a peek and support him how you can. But let me step away and so you can start to listen. You're going to love this and go be great. Today, I have an amazing guest, a good friend of mine who I've known for way too long, Greg Cavoli. Greg and I go way back from our time even at UConn and then working at Enterprise in Connecticut as our first careers out of college. And I'm happy to say, what a success he's had. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. So Greg, welcome. Thanks for being on the podcast.
It is my pleasure. And you give me hope, Deb, in careers after I'm done with Enterprise. So that's, I'm proud of you and love what you're doing. And you called me amazing. I wouldn't say that, but I appreciate that. And excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, this is cool. So there are going to be some people listening that may not know you. So how about you give a little insight as to who you are and what you do and why you're so good at what you do?
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, currently you'll start where I am today. I'm the general manager of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Enterprise Holdings in Harrisburg, PA. I got here, I've been here for almost 17 years, and I got here via Philadelphia, about 5 years in that market. And then I started with Enterprise for my first 10 years where I was born and raised, as you mentioned, in Connecticut, as a very proud UConn Husky.
Yep, go Huskies. Yep.
Yeah, and as we talk today, you'll understand how it all connects with me because I'm a big basketball nut. Born in a pretty big family with two sisters and a brother. Still have family in Connecticut. So I get back, sister in Florida, sister in Boston, and plenty of nieces and nephews. And we Zoom them and we get to see them. I would probably tell you where I'm so thoroughly enjoying my Enterprise career still. I'm 29 years, which is crazy, 30 years coming up. And I hope there's many more. Very recently, I've always dabbled in the basketball arena and as a coach, as a trainer. And I took a more formal step and playing a role in running a club, a basketball club, AAU it's called. And really only about a month into that. And I was kind of doing it in the past, but now my name's officially on it. So
you wrote a check.
yeah, I have. Yeah. And I probably find myself doing what you did your first year or two out of Enterprise and taking all the things you learned there and trying to bring it over. And why change something that's not broken, right? So it's still fun. So 30 days in, it's still fun. And I'm still able to concentrate on my my paying job at Enterprise. So my wife hasn't left me yet.
Oh, geez, Andrea, love her.
Speaking of that, I'm blessed to have a very supportive and loving wife and 4 kids. So my oldest daughter, Julia, is in college. I've got 2 daughters, Megan and Lauren, in high school still. And then my youngest is my son. Thank goodness we got the boy. He's in middle school. I always tell people all 4 play basketball, and a few of them even like playing basketball. But
Oh,
they had no choice.
yeah, that's great. I think about some of our fun times together back in Connecticut, and there was this thing called the NESC, Northeast Sports Extravaganza. And I remember you bringing us to your house in Suffield for a rally, like pep rally type thing. And, you had your jock jams going and everyone's like getting together and having a blast. And that's just one thing, but that happens a lot, I'm sure, with your team. And can you talk a little bit about what you do to bring your employees together in fun ways to help them feel part of a team?
Yeah, I bought a sound system. Boy, it's got to be 18 years old, a portable sound system that would blast to a room. And that's been my traveling buddy. And so to your point, and I changed my song and it's more updated now. I don't do jock jams anymore.
No more jock jams. Okay.
But you put music to anything and it pops. Enterprise has afforded me the opportunity to have fun. And some of that costs money. Our current CEO, Chrissy Taylor, epitomizes that. She's the youngest generation of Taylors. And what makes her different is she's really fun. Not that the others weren't, but she's really fun. And so when you combine having fun with competing, I find that is the best recipe to really get through to people. And as funny as it sounds, I do want to talk for a second about that sports extravaganza. I found, I look back, and it's been a while. It's been 10 years since we did that, but I found that was one of the pinnacles of my career and the things I learned from that, because it took all the men and women that you worked every day with at Enterprise, renting cars, cleaning cars, picking up customers, and they were part of your family. And yes, we competed in sales, we competed in who's got the bigger fleets, but then we came together and competed on the courts in the fields in 10 different sports, and we competed against other enterprise groups. When you put sports out there, you get an emotion from people that I haven't been able to get from selling rental cars, from managing a P&L. And maybe it's because it involves, sweat and tears. Maybe it's because it pushes people to the limits. Maybe it's just because I'm a sports junkie. But to me, some of my favorite moments in life have been when I played basketball competitively in high school. I still play competitively, or try to. When I've coached basketball, when I've watched my kids play soccer, when I've watched my kids play basketball, I can't find that passion and emotion to that level doing other things. And so when we took Enterprise and brought it over, it was pretty special. Now, since then, you can't do this big Olympics every year. So we try to I think we model a lot of what we do, and I've tried to model a lot of what I do after what coaches do. And there's this tremendous crossover, right? And we call ourselves coaches. We call it team. We have a saying, Deb, that you have to love the person on the end of the bench as much as you love the person that's sitting next to you. And that really came from 5th grade basketball, where I was coached with 3 daughters. I'm mostly coaching young ladies. And the loud kid that was the tallest and the best always found their way to the coach's heart. They always sat next to you. But oftentimes we'd look past little Sally that's sitting on the end of the bench. And so we started to talk to a lot of our kids and then a lot of our coaches about, you have to love the person on the end of the bench as much as you love the person in the front. And a couple things happen there. First of all, the person on the end of the bench develops. Second thing is all 1 through 9 watch you do that. And you're teaching them how important everybody is on the team. And I think what starts to happen is they start to mimic the coach. And so now the loud, probably overconfident player in that first chair becomes the mentor to that player in the 10th chair. It's really has a lot of application in business too, right? And it's easy to celebrate your top performers. We do that so well. When you can have your top performers help pick up the one that's toward the end of the bench, it's a tremendous benefit to management because in our business, we're so sales oriented and growth oriented. You're naturally going to spend more time with the top performers in the biggest branches. And that's probably okay. But if you have the rest of the team, you're helping, but you have the rest of the team picking up person into the bench, I think it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. There's so much in what you just said. I want to go back to fun with competing is the best recipe to get through to people. So how do you bring Sally, who's at the end of the bench, into this wanting to compete with others feeling? How do you build that for her so that she's engaging with the rest of the team? Because she might feel like she's the worst.
Yeah, and this is where it might differ from, well, maybe not. I was going to say it might differ from sport to, the workplace. We find in sport, it's confidence. And so now you do everything you can to give Sally confidence. It might not be because she can't dribble as well, or maybe she's as fast, but she just lacks confidence. And you do that in practice. You do that by putting her in situations where she can succeed. And then you've known me, Deb. I think I was tagged early on, good guy, Greg. And that was probably, and you probably don't remember who said that, Jackie, but
Jackie Rojic.
Yeah, but, and I think it was used as kind of a pick, but I've always been a leader to give positive reinforcement first, and probably too much. However, as I've grown in my position and my position's gotten bigger and my title's gotten bigger, that style to me works better. Reality is there are people that have to put the hard hat on. I don't have to do it as much. The other thing is I have such a reputation for being positive that when I do put the hard hat on, I don't have to be as loud, and it goes a long way. The other piece to this, and we've got to talk about this, and this is the relationship between business, sales, organization, and sports, is you have to keep score, and then you have to celebrate the winners. And that's really what you were referring to back when we were doing the jock jams and so in basketball and soccer and football, it's easy. The scoreboard's there. In the workplace, it's not that obvious. Enterprise, we have tremendous advantage because we measure everything. And what our team has been able to do over the years is we've done probably some of the best job at celebrating that. And whether it's a top 10 and it's an annual contest, which branch can be in the top 10. And we're on month 2 today. If you went out into the field, every one of our managers could tell you exactly where they rank. And they could tell you, my goal is to be in the top 10 out of 70 branches and get on stage at the end of the year and have Greg's dance on his head and cheer loud.
Yeah.
And that's not new to what I do, but we are unwavering with our consistency in that. Where it really helped us, Deb, was through COVID. Our team came out of COVID. I think our company did, but our team came out of COVID maybe quicker than others. And I think what we were able to do was find our normal faster. And there's a lot of reasons to say, we're just not going to rank people this year. It's not fair. Or we're just not going to hold them accountable or review them because there's just too many things holding us back. We tried to push that forward. And I think there was a way to do that where you were fair and you were safe, but you got back to measuring. And you can't hire all these A+ personality people, measure them for 10 years and then turn it off and expect them to like it.
Oh, no. Right.
Yeah. So where I think a lot of people turned it off for a year, we turned it off for about a month, and then we were right back.
Yeah. Well, you were able to turn it back on because of the trust that you have created with your leaders to then create trust with the team. And they know that when you said the word fair and safe, you were able to have them step out of this place of feeling a lack of control, if you want to call it, with the pandemic, that actually they probably saw that this was a place where they could find control, where they could actually come to work and feel like they're part of something, that actually you're working towards something and at the end you're going to achieve it, versus, the rest of the world, you turn on the news, you never know what's going to happen. So it's almost like you took advantage of the change and uncertainty going on in our world, and you turned it into an advantage for you, and it worked.
A good way to put it. Where the company helped them was there was guaranteed pay, even when those that got paid off the bottom line was negative. And what a gesture. And anyone that works for that culture is going to appreciate that. However, at some point, even that has a shelf life. Our folks want to compete. They want to know what's next, right? And so, I'm not making it sound a lot easier than it was. It was challenging. I know we'll get to this, but kind of trusting in the people you hire, the people you put on your team is so critical.
Yeah. Going back to the good job, Greg.
Good guy, Greg.
Yeah. I remember one thing you taught me, because I worked in a branch where there was no office. And for me to talk to one of my employees working at the airport, I had to take them outside and go for a walk. And I remember, I don't know where we were, but you said something and it made sense. And you said, when I pull people into the office, it's actually to tell them that they did a good job. I saw that they ran the counter well, or they handled the situation well. And it was just about, hey, I saw you do this. That was awesome. Keep at it. And then you let them back out. So I learned that you needed to create a space that wasn't going to be that, oh, I need to go and have this tough conversation with Deb, or, we're going to go out for the walk and, I'm going to hear it. How did having that approach, being the good guy, doing the positive reinforcement, intentionally thinking about where you give feedback, how did that come about? Because, and I say this because the podcast is called The Blind Spot. And for a lot of people, they might think like, oh, I have to give feedback to somebody and help them be better because I notice that they're doing something wrong. Yet you look at it the other way. And that's not a normal thing. So you don't have this blind spot that a lot of people do. Where does that come from?
I love the blind spot theory. So that 1 Minute Manager book series is the 1 minute praising. So I probably stole it from that, and it's necessarily not my idea. Where I think people are reluctant to look you in the eye in a private setting to get your attention and say, Deb, I just have one thing to tell you today. You were unbelievable with that customer, and I'm so proud of you. The reason we're reluctant is because we don't want Deb to let her guard down. And so I always feel like I've got to say, but this is how you want to do it next. And you can't settle. And I have found you don't need that tail. I think if you do it the right way, and I've already built a relationship where Deb knows I love her, and I like using that word, right? It makes you understand where I'm going. Care and love. Deb knows I love her, just like our children. I think that is so, so important. And I found, almost to a fault, Deb, that worked so well that I rarely found times to give a 1 minute reprimand, which, looking back, it probably held me back a little bit. Now, I wouldn't have changed it, right?
Things worked out.
Yeah, I think if I had to give you the ratio, maybe I should have done, I was probably 10 praisings and 0 reprimands. I probably should have done 7 praisings and 1 reprimand.
Yeah.
But where I've really seen that is, as I've coached younger ages, it can be intimidating to be in a full gym, being on stage, fans watching, especially the young ladies I coach and the young boys. I haven't met any that boys sometimes, but I haven't met any young ladies that don't need more confidence. And just pulling them aside on the bench and just saying, and maybe Lauren missed 3 shots, but it's not going to help me to say, Lauren, that's why you got to practice. You got to make those shots, especially during a game. It's, Lauren, you were doing exactly what I asked. I don't care about missed shots. I'm just ecstatic that you're taking those shots at the right time of the game. So you have to exaggerate it in 5th grade basketball, but I don't think it's much different with a 25-year-old entrepreneur that's trying to make their market enterprise. I really don't.
Yeah. What you're talking about with the Lauren example is the behavior that she keeps trying versus the result. And sometimes we get stuck on that scorecard and we look at a number. but all the behaviors would lead to that number, kind of like the customer service score. There's no way that you could determine exactly what your score is going to be, but you can control the behaviors that your team displays to give that high level of customer service to clients, to work well as a team, to be prepared, to be proactive. Those are behaviors. Those are choices. So recognizing choices and behaviors will lead to the outcome at some point that you're looking for. And the way that you described it with Lauren is perfect too. That makes a lot of sense.
Right on, Deb. Can I give you something that I probably picked up a few years ago?
Yeah.
That I needed to get better at. And it's basically not being afraid to be vulnerable, and how powerful that can be, especially again, as you get to a higher title. As a general manager, there's probably a thought that you have to have all the answers and you have to impress the crowd and you want people to aspire to be who you are. And yeah, there are times to do that, but I have found it very impactful when my employees see me as a real human. And the way I've done that is we do a lot over at the house. And as you know, we have a unique house. My very understanding wife allowed us to build a big basketball court in the backyard. So we call it the Cavoli barn. And we practice back there for outside of enterprise basketball. And we have a lot of parties over there. And when you come over there, you not only meet my family, you see me chasing my dog, maybe cleaning up its mess. You see my son come out and be a wise guy. And that's me being vulnerable. I tried to take that to, it's a funny story. I tried to take that to my 6th grade girls. This was a couple of years ago. I must have read this from a book. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go show my 6th grade girls that I'm vulnerable. And it's hard because they're practicing a gym that has my name on it. It says Cavoli Barn. And so how can I'm supposed to know everything. I'm the big basketball coach. And so I pulled them all at about middle of practice. I said, girls, Coach Greg has something I got to talk to you about. And they're all looking up. I said, I really want to apologize to you because, as you guys remember, last practice, I forgot to get you guys a drink break. And we went for about 30 minutes without a drink break. And I just want to tell you that coaches can make mistakes too. And I've really been thinking about that and I won't make that mistake again. About half the girls kind of weren't listening, but 1 or 2 of them came up to me and put their arm around me and said, it's okay, Coach Greg.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's a funny story, whether it had an effect or not, but the power of being vulnerable, which obviously as leaders, it's hard because we feel like we got to put our armor on all the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think even for myself, whenever I was in front of a training class at Enterprise, or even now what I'm doing, I know the magic happens when I can connect with people and when I'm sharing stories of my own experiences, not my failures, but things that I did learn from, and that no one's perfect. And that sort of thing, you use the word human, people see us as real. And when that guard goes down, then you're able to actually learn and grow, versus when you're always in I have to be perfect state. That's almost a fear-based approach, and your brain can't grow. You're just looking like with tunnel vision, which again, that's another blind spot. So, you use the word vulnerable. You're just being real. And it's okay to say, I'm not too sure about the answer on that. I want to get you the correct info. Why can't we say that? That's, we don't have to be perfect. And I'm certain that people appreciate hearing that from you. What about right now with your role growing leaders? I see the type of leader that you are. It's not just the people right underneath you. It's almost like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th layers underneath. How are you able to grow leaders on your team?
Yeah, and in this answer, in my role has changed, Steph, right? And so in probably any industry, any business, if you've been doing it for 29 years, and I've been doing this job specifically for 17, I was much different my first 5. And I was probably much more hands-on. I was probably much more visible. And why am I not anymore? Well, I'm a little older, maybe. We were a little bigger, maybe. But I've tried to make that a positive. So the first thing, and I mentioned it earlier, is you could say being hands-off. I say giving autonomy to the leaders you put in place, and talk about powerful. I think when I have my best team, so I have about 7 or 8 direct reports. When I have my best team, and I probably have a pretty good one right now, I definitely have a pretty good one right now. I can show them what I want the score to be. Enterprise allows us to do that, right? So here's where our expectations are, and it's crystal clear. And then I could tell them, I trust you implicitly with this. You're better than I am at some of this stuff. I am going to sit back and watch you and enjoy the ride. The second you need help, I need to be your first call, and I'm going to be there to support you. That's how a lot of my conversations go. So we just hired we just had a big position to put a manager in place. And your old buddy John called me and said, Greg, before I make this big decision, it's down to these two candidates. I know who I wanted. But the first thing I said was, John, I appreciate you calling. At the end of this conversation, I'm supporting whatever decision you make. And John and I have had enough conversations where we were aligned philosophically, and we both landed in the same spot. And I confirmed it there. So I think 9 out of 10 times, Deb, I hang up and say, oh, good, they went with my decision. The 1 out of 10 times they don't, I think I let them go. And that's where we live and learn. So almost to a point where the team is so proud to do it without me and then call me with what they did. I find I have to nitpick and say, well, why didn't you tell me about that? Get me involved. Well, yeah, I don't need you, Greg. I don't need you, Greg. So now when they do perform and win, I'm their biggest cheerleader. I do that by giving them the 1 minute praising directly. And hey, Angela, even though I've worked with you for 12 years, I don't get a chance to say this enough. I'm so proud of you. And and then you got my support to be an RVP. And the second part of that is being their advocate, being their sponsor. And that's such a big part of my job. I spend a lot of my months calling on behalf of my folks. I think once that's in place, Deb, and I'm going to make this again sound a lot easier than it is, anyone below them, my main role is to remember their birthday, reach out when they had something challenging happen. I just reached out to a branch manager who dog had stomach surgery, and while it's not a big deal to most, it was a huge deal to him. So I learned that Parth Patel's dog is just fine. So reach out when they get promoted, be there as guidance on their big moments, which for them, it might only be once a year. Hey, I need your advice on which business line to go to, and then cheer them so loud. And when I'm out in the field visiting, I got 3 minutes with these folks. I give them 2 messages. One, and this is from Chrissy Taylor, right? I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for us. I try to do that 1 minute praising as sincere as I can. I'm recognizing what you're doing, even though I don't see every day. And then 2, tell me where you want to go next. Tell me what your career aspirations are. And then I give them a little advice or, hey, there's good news coming. To me, when we're humming, that's all I do. And then every other thing, teaching someone how to operate, having a 1 minute reprimand, we have the team for that. When I have to drop a level and do some of that stuff, it's pretty impactful. Usually I don't know what I'm talking about, but it means a lot because it's coming from me.
Gee, Deb, how do you guys do your phones so well?
I usually would call you and say, I have to
Give
get
me
in
your
the weeds
secrets.
here.
Give me your
I have to get in the weeds.
Too funny. Oh my gosh. So I wrote down clear performance goals, trust. When you need help, I'm your first call. I'm your biggest cheerleader. There's a lot of pride.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, you do the birthday phone call. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. In fairness, I go to mid-level manager. I used to do them all, but we've gotten too big. So I do anniversary and birthday. Now the next level below me does all that. So that's the other thing that carries through. So, my team knows that, if there is I do other thing I'm going to show you later, but I do on when they're have a baby, I get them a Cavoli barn onesie.
Oh, I love it.
Pink for girls, and I'll show you later, blue for boys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but when there's something that, some type of hardship, no matter what level, we throw everything we have at these folks, and that's so important for them to know we have support. They have support.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's what's great about the company. I think of my paycheck back when I was a branch manager with Brett Nan as our general manager, and he would write on my paychecks, "Great month, Deb."
Yeah, just the fact that you say Deb.
Yeah, just like little things like that. And how long ago? That was like in 1993. But that stuff like that stays with me. Like those are the things that are just like, that's very different. And it shows that someone is paying attention to me. And even you said when you're in the field, of course, you're thanking your team, but you also say, tell me where you want to go. What's on the horizon for your career? So you're invested in helping them with their dreams and what's important to them. So it's amazing.
Deb, if one of our goals in any company is to not just retain our people, which is a big issue in today's economy, but to want them to succeed. Again, I haven't met many employees that this isn't true for. They have to know where they stand and where they're going. If you comb through our exit interviews, at one point, they typically don't know where they stand or didn't know where they're going. And oftentimes they might be an underperformer, so it would have been a hard conversation. But we empower and then push our managers. Everybody needs to know, where do I stand and where I'm going, and find opportunities to do it. You can't just wait for an annual review. So if you're doing this right, the manager I was talking about, where she doesn't know it yet, but we're going to promote Emily out in Allentown.
Uh-oh. Awesome.
Yeah. There are probably 7 other managers that either were in for it or weren't in for it, but are just watching. And I think it's an opportunity to go to them and say, hey, Deb, I know you weren't in for this. Emily got it. Let me tell you why she got it. I know you weren't a candidate, but what do you think would make you a candidate? When are we going to have the next one? So always using it. And that's a structural piece with our company that we have the benefit, because there is a ladder, right? Some companies don't have that. But in any company, it's where do I stand and where am I going? It's so critical. In the minute we lose that, and we see it, we might have a leader in the field that just is behind and playing catch up, and they're missing that part of the conversation. You see that in their performance, and then they'll start to lose people.
Well, your question, what do you think will make you a candidate, is such a powerful question for that person that only, I don't know, I'm just putting thoughts together, but they may only believe they're as good as what this little story in their head tells them. And they're in this little box. And maybe they say, well, I have to get this kind of number to be able to throw. But there's also other things about what do they need to believe about themselves. And the fact that you're having a conversation with them will help them, like, oh, okay, he does see this in me. He's having a conversation with me. Like, oh, okay, I should believe more in myself. I should believe that I'm capable of stepping up and, being that more impactful teammate, even though I may not have the word manager in my name, but there's probably different ways that I could approach the day. I myself remember interviewing to become an area manager, not getting it, but I felt so good after my interview. Like it was almost like talking about my career and what I was doing, just like reinforced, like, oh, I am good at what I do. And it's nice that you ask a question that helps them start to think of those answers, even though they weren't in the interview. That's great.
We could have a whole podcast on the tie to diversity on that topic, Deb. And books tell us that if you don't approach a female and a minority, they're less likely to approach you. Now, not you. You, to me, was always someone that we're afraid to find a seat at the table. But maybe that's just my view. But yeah, that's such a big issue in 2021. You have to. Oftentimes, you'll miss the best candidate if you aren't proactive. If you're just waiting for them to raise their hand, you're going to miss some people that maybe don't fit the traditional mold, but are the best candidate.
Yeah. No, you are right. You are right, because I do remember believing like Mike Melville was my manager when I was an MT, and I'm like, there is no way that I could be a branch manager. There is no way that I can do that job. Yeah. Oh man, good times. But listen, we're coming up on it, and I want to save a few minutes at the end for you to give some highlights about your passion project outside of enterprise, and just the amazing role that you have for your daughters, but the team that you are sponsoring, and this league that you are taking over, and what's that all about? Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, certainly, Deb. So enterprise affords us the opportunity to be very involved in the community. So one of my passions has been with the United Way, and that's coming up on a decade, and I'll finish this year as the board chair. And not that I'll pass that on, but as I've done different things in the community, I keep going back to basketball. I'm sure it started with coaching my own kids. The big question, a lot of coaches ask this, or a lot of parents ask this, is, am I still going to want to coach when it's not my kid? And so for the last 4 years, I've been coaching fifth and sixth grade girls that aren't my kid. And it's been an absolute blast. It's one of my favorite age groups because there's so much development needed there and feel like you're making an impact. I have brought my older daughters in to coach with me, quickly learning that they are who the kids want to talk to, right? The college girl. And so as much knowledge as I have, I don't have what they have. They don't aspire to be me. I'm an old white haired guy. Well, I guess about 10 years ago, not that I needed to, but I was kicking myself saying, I'm just not the most cultured individual. And my wife will tell you that. We don't travel as much as we should. I don't have a lot of other hobbies. It's enterprise and basketball. And I said, that's okay. I mean, it is my passion. So I've spent a ton of time in and around the game, coaching at all levels. And I am going to retire at some point. Don't kick me out yet. And I've probably what you did as you approached retirement was, I gotta have something. And even if it's not something that matches up to what I was doing. And I'm thinking about that now. And I'm hoping there's a multi-year horizon there for me to build into this. But so we bought a basketball club, and it's about 30 teams. And I'm doing it with some two close friends. And it's a blast. And, we have to organize it from putting the right leadership in place, which is coaches. We have to do some recruiting. We had to brand it. We had to website it, right? We had to social media it.
TikTok.
Yeah, I know. We picked out the uniforms last night, right? So we marketed, so I used my business experience to go call all the uniform companies that want your money. And at some point, we'll actually play games. And I'll still stay connected to coaching, but a typical Saturday, Sunday weekend for me this spring and summer will be at a tournament watching 5 or 6 of my teams compete and having a say in each of them. And if you recall, that's kind of what I did the weekend of the Northeast Sports Extravaganza back 12 years ago, right?
Isn't it? Yeah, we're bringing it back. Yeah.
I coached the girls basketball team. I played in the boys basketball team, but then I ran around saying, how are we doing in soccer? I don't know much about that, but how are we doing in football? So, I don't know what that's called. It's a club director, but athletic director, I don't know. So that seems to be where my passion's taken me. The neat thing is, one thing is you don't do that for the money, right? And however, there are many different paths that you can take, that basketball guys take. You could run tournaments, you could run trainings, you could own tournament companies. And so I'm not sure that's in the cards down the road. Right now, it is dealing with young men and women, dealing with coaches and being around the game. So I'm having a blast. I certainly envision all the girls. I've been doing this I've been coaching for 15 years, but real serious. And so now the girls that we've coached early on are in college, and they're coming back to be intern coaches with us. And if that's not rewarding, I don't know what is. I mean, these young ladies, and they're the best young ladies, and they're, all these young girls aspire to be them, especially the ones that are 6'4", right?
Oh, there you have a 6'4". Wow.
Yeah, we had a couple. Yeah.
Wow, so that's great. You think about that. You think about the impact and the ripple effect that you're giving these 5th and 6th grade girls who are going to, grow up and go through high school and college and then find a career and start a family and just the different life that they're going to have because of the experience that you gave them, which is really amazing.
I appreciate that, Devin. So there have been, and there are going to be some great stories of young ladies and ultimately young men. I got to get more focused on the boys side, but young ladies that probably either not going to college or they're certainly not going to the college that basketball can take them to. And as we learn, that's a whole part of this deal. As we learn about the college landscape, there are tremendous opportunities for young ladies to play all sports, definitely play basketball. You just have to have some support. So we're finding that. And then you always hear, and I was like this, if you ask me who were some mentors growing up, it was actually a 5th, 6th grade basketball coach. It was a high school basketball coach. And so if we can make that impact on these folks and these young people, and they may not have that. A lot of them don't have active parents or at least mentors around. So if we can fill that void, that's what we feel good about. Now, the reality is it also fills our competitive bucket, right? Because you better believe we want to be the best club in Pennsylvania and beat the teams from Philly.
There you go. Oh, really? Well, you know what? Go for it. Where I live, I'm right in the middle. So I'll swing over to the Harrisburg side. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Greg, it's been wonderful having this conversation with you. You know what? You're a gem. Love you. Love Andrea. Your whole approach to everything, to life. I just always wish you the best, and keep being great. So thanks again for being on my podcast.
Thank you, Deb. To think of our history and to think we'd be sitting here on a video conference, audio conference, and talking about this is really an honor for me. And it's been a pleasure. And I love your success. And I know you'll keep being successful. So I'm not sure this will get you famous, this podcast, but the next few might.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. This is going to be good. Well, thanks, Greg. This is awesome. Wonderful. Nice job.
Take care, buddy.
What did you learn about yourself? What in this conversation got you thinking, maybe there's something to that? That's your blind spot. Continue this conversation with me. Send an email to hello@deborahseymour.com. Now, go be a great leader.